how it was that you came up with, or the number for 40, where that came from exactly.
There's well over 120 years of research on transverse development. So it begins with Dr. Edward Bogue. It's called the Bogue Index. Now, Dr. Edward Bogue was an MD DDS. So he's the guy who did all the research on the primary dentition growth and development early, and his research was in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He's the gentleman that we basically all quote, but nobody in dentistry remembers his name. Of all the measurements they made, in the hundreds of measurements, there was only one measurement that was a statistically significant predictor of good growth and development. It was the transverse measurement. And so his research showed that those kids landed between 35 and 39 millimeters between 3 and 14. That's by age 12. So 35 to 39 is the range between teeth 3 and 14 by the age of 12. And those kids had 28 teeth come in where they belong. They had good occlusion. They didn't need ortho. Most of them will not keep their wisdom teeth. So 35 to 39, you don't get to keep your wisdom teeth. If you have 28 teeth, easy, no troubles. No wisdom teeth though, most of the time. So the last piece of information comes from anthropology research. Pre-industrial, pre-Western cultures that have all 32 teeth go to place uniformly around the world. Prior to 400 years ago, that's pretty much how every human developed. The transverse measurements begin at 45. So for an adult that's fully grown, 45 is a minimum between 3 and 14. And then when you hit 50 millimeters, that's when all of a sudden you have better than 90% of the mouths have 32 teeth erupted in them. So 40 is a very safe number. So what 40 does for you, if you can get a child up to 40 and then get the breathing and the musculature right, and they grow a little more on their own, what you've done is you've guaranteed 28 easy. 28 is no longer an issue. So you don't have to think about getting to 28. But by getting to 40 at a minimum, all of a sudden now you've tipped the scale. You should actually experience half of the wisdom teeth come in on their own. You should be increasing your percentage of wisdom tooth eruption into function. Now, the moment you feel comfortable with that, we start to challenge you to push a little further. And then you'll go for 42, 44, 45. Because as soon as you start feeling more comfortable with your technique, you'll take those kids a little bit farther. And then one day you'll settle in with a little higher number, because you'll start to see, as these kids are getting older, hey, look at that, their wisdom teeth start coming in, and you start recognizing. So the pathway from 30 at age 4 to 35 at age 8 to 40 at age 12 is basically to get you to the point where you have now guaranteed a 28 tooth oral cavity, but you've just now tipped the scale into a coin toss for wisdom teeth. And if you can start to push even further, and that's usually by developing with breathing and muscle activity to get the rest of it on its own, now you're headed towards greater percentages of wisdom tooth eruption into function with no help and no discomfort whatsoever. It's incredible. Those kids feel nothing as their wisdom teeth are coming in. Transverse development.